right before she was hung, her famous line, "If you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me and I'll carry it." And apparently she was just an evil, evil lady. Well, Phil, we're back at it on SuccessFlow podcast. I can't believe summer's like pretty much wrapping up. I spent the last couple weeks in South Carolina, which was insanely humid and hot. And holy crap, the locals knew we were not from there because every time we walked outside, just drenched. But tons of history there, man. We hung out in Charleston. Most of the trip was in Myrtle Beach. It was a fun beach trip, but the first half of the trip was in Charleston. And have you ever been there?
I have not, but Paula did her bachelorette there and heard it was amazing.
Oh, she did.
I
could see that. There actually was a lot of bachelorette or wedding parties running around town.
Yeah, I've got another buddy that's getting ready to go to a bachelor party there. So it seems like it. Some of the pictures I was prepping for this podcast look beautiful.
Yeah, super historic. One of the oldest cities, I think like the third oldest city in America.
Charlestown, as you said.
That's right. Charlestown. So I thought it'd be cool to especially we just celebrated 250 years of American independence, which, as you can imagine, being in Charleston, that was everywhere. It was cool to see the patriotism and, 250 everywhere and a lot of cool things. And we did some tours. I am going to preface this with, I am not a history buff at all. I think it's cool, but I just haven't studied it a lot. And I learned so much on this trip. We did some tours, went to some really cool buildings. They have tons of churches out there. I thought it'd be cool to do a podcast just highlighting some of our history, man. Where we were found, Charleston is a staple. It was where Revolutionary War, the Civil War, it's where everything kind of expanded from England to United States and the West expansion and all that. And a lot of it started in Charleston. And I didn't realize that. I always kind of thought it was Northeast.
I know Fort Sumter.
Yeah.
And I know you were kind of expanding on what I didn't know is how wealthy the colony was in comparison to the others.
Yeah. So Carolina Union or whatever, it wasn't South or North, I don't think. They were kind of just one Carolina, but it was one of the 13 colonies. And it wasn't the richest colony, but Charleston was the richest city at the time. It was really because of all of the trades and the exports and imports and all that. They had so many ports there. It was easy to navigate and get access to. And that's partly why a lot of the wars started there. Yeah, it was, and it still is. If you think about Georgia or Alabama, it can be a little not as, I don't know, elegant, let's say. Charleston is very elegant. Everyone was well dressed. You could tell it was very proper. A lot of old money there, even today. But back then it was. It was the richest city.
Southern belles and gentlemen.
Yes, very much so. And it was funny because all the girls, all the women were wearing nice dresses and all the guys were wearing navy pants and button downs. It was very much, even today, still dressed similarly. And we're out there sweating our tails off in board shorts and a backwards hat. Everyone else is all dressed nicely. We were definitely out of place, but it was really cool.
So did you walk the Battery, the Harbor Wall?
Yeah. So we did. And we honestly, like I said, we're not history buffs. We didn't even know what the Battery was. We had to go learn about this. So we're what's the Battery? But we knew we had to go there. And so we walked there. We saw Fort Sumter. It's a tiny, tiny little fort. You would think it's this massive thing. And maybe it was back then. I don't know. But there's nothing really there. And the island that it's on is very, very small. We actually walked and did the tour of USS Yorktown, which is a big, big ship that they brought down from the Northeast. And they had the whole big museum there. And it's just walking in and out and through that ship. I could barely fit, dude.
It was that the one that was the first submarine attack?
I don't know if it was the first one, but
I heard the first successful submarine attack was actually on the U.S. in Charleston.
Oh, it could have been.
Kind of looking through this. And then they recovered it in 95. I didn't know if that was the same ship.
No, this one came... I don't think so because this one last battle was World War I or II or something, and then they brought it over in the 60s, I think.
Gotcha.
Now it's a museum, but it was pretty awesome to see. But yeah, it was really neat. It was a really cool experience. Lots of ghost stories. I didn't realize how it reminded me of Jerome, Arizona, right? A ghost town. Charleston's a big ghost town. There's a ton of rumors or stories and folklore that people love. And some of the stories were insane. Whether they're true or not, I don't know, but they were pretty cool.
Well, lay one on me. What was the one that comes to mind first?
All right, so there's this married couple, Lavinia Fisher and John Fisher. So it's married couple, and they owned like an inn, like they had like a hotel or something, right? Mm-hmm. And she was very pretty, like she was a very attractive woman back then, and she would kind of seduce or like get charming, rich, wealthy guys to come to the inn with her. The story goes that I heard was she would poison them and steal all of their money. And so they did this for like hundreds of people, like hundreds of guys, and got away with it. They were never caught. So John and her had this whole scheme going.
Her picture just popped up, or the first one that did, and it kind of creeps me out right out the gate.
It's probably a picture of like a ghostly figure, right? Well, so there's a guy that she was trying to charm and do the whole thing, right? They'd already done this for 100 plus guys, and he kind of was like, this is weird. She's asking these questions like, how much money do I have on me? And, like he was kind of just had his wits about him a little bit and was up in the room, and he went up there and she gave him a drink, and he kind of recognized that he wasn't like, okay, I think something's off here. And so he pretended to drink it, didn't actually drink it, threw the glass, like dumped it out, whatever. And she said goodnight, nothing happened. He said goodnight, he's in his room, and then all of a sudden, like an hour later, I guess whatever the poison was, would take like an hour to take you out. And so they would leave, and they would come back later, then rob you and dispose of your body. Well, he heard all this commotion of John and Lavinia like an hour later in his room, like coming up the stairs. I was like, oh, what the heck is going on? And he recognized that something was totally up. So they come busting through the door, and he jumps out the window and like escapes. He's able to get away because he recognized what was happening, and ends up going to find the authorities and tells the police. So they get caught. And back then, I didn't realize this, dude. This is crazy. Back then, most of this was Lavinia's doing. John was kind of like just owned the inn and was an accomplice, but most of this was all Lavinia. Well, back then, women were men's property. So if you were a married man and your wife committed a crime, you took the punishment.
You were responsible?
Not her. You were responsible. So he got hung, like he was killed, or like he got death penalty.
She was not.
Well, here's the catch. So whoever the executor was, or the judge, let's say, was like, Lavinia, you are toast. Like you've done this way too many times. That you're a goner, basically. And she's like, well, this is what's going to happen. So they took the husband out. John Fisher had the death penalty. Now she's no longer married, and he's like, and these are your crimes. And so she fought, and the judge was like, no, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that you are going to face the death penalty as well. And so she goes, all right, basically, if you're going to do this, can I wear whatever I want, and can I say whatever I want as I'm going up to be hung? And he's like, Lavinia, I really don't care what you do, what you say, what you wear. There's nothing that's getting you out of this. So story tells us that as she's walking up, she wears a wedding dress, and she's asking all the guys in the crowd to marry her, so that way she can get out of it. And then the guys, obviously, no one took her up on this deal. And so obviously they're like, well, I'm not going to take the fall for this. So she was hung, but as apparently right before she was hung, her famous line. So she said, if you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me and I'll carry it. And apparently she was just an evil, evil lady, and she was killed. And then the story goes, she ended up haunting the local city jail forever from here on out. She's around
As did
Charleston.
John too, right?
Yeah. And John, yes. So both of them there. So there's lots of ghosts there. It was just a crazy time. Like we even visited the dungeon. It was called the Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. You heard about this?
No.
So this Provost Exchange, that's where actually they read the Declaration of Independence, was like out in front of this building. Well, down below was a dungeon, and it was like not bigger than, I'm going to say, geez, like barely bigger than my first apartment. And it's all just like cobblestone and just like really tough area to be. And they would pile in 100 to 150 criminals. Like if you were like, you were in this dungeon and there was no bathrooms. It was disgusting. And we took a tour down in there. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine like how terrible, especially I'm thinking like as I'm sweating it's so much and like just being around like all these people. Anyway, there was a dungeon down there and they would keep people down there, and it was super inhumane, and the crimes like were very different. Like if you murdered someone, or stole a pocket watch, you would go down in this dungeon. Like it wasn't like they didn't really justify and fit the crime.
Punishment
like,
didn't necessarily fit the crime.
It was weird. So anyway, that's one of the ghost stories, one of the ones that I can remember the most. And I just thought that was super interesting of like how I thought it was really strange how I didn't know this, how women were property of men back then. And if a woman committed the crime, the men took the punishment.
Love the old ghost stories. We have quite a few of them in Arizona too. And we were just kind of talking through with the owners of Lucy's at the Orchard. And apparently that whole staff is convinced that old Pomelo house is haunted. Like some of the employees won't go down there.
Really?
And then there's also Casey Moore's down in Tempe is super haunted. It was like a brothel party house during Prohibition. And then there's some local stuff. Taking their food's awesome, by the way. But
I've been there. I've been there. Yeah. I didn't realize the ghost story.
Well, yeah, you worked right next to it.
Yeah.
It was right down the street from Oregano's.
Yeah.
Any old town like that is going to have these stories, and you wonder, how they all came about.
The town was it went through so many wars and so many plagues, and like yellow fever ran rampant through there, and they didn't understand what yellow fever was, and they thought it was contagious. It was all from mosquitoes, right? It's from.
So that all came up in Africa, and so the tribes in Africa, the Maasai, thought they had these trees, and they called them yellow fever trees, and they were convinced that these trees, because it was the area that the mosquitoes were, that it was the leaves and the oxygen coming from the trees that were the source of yellow fever, which isn't funny, but I mean, it went on forever. Them thinking that they associated these trees with yellow fever.
Yeah, so they would stay away from those trees. Don't go near the tree, otherwise you're...
Exactly.
So similar, they didn't realize it was from these mosquitoes. They thought it was contagious. So I guess, like, if you were sick with yellow fever, then the doctors would have like a 6-foot pole with like a little mirror, or like a little piece of glass, like reaching around the corner, and they would stick it under your nose, because you would be like so slow breath, like you go into a coma, like you lose like functionality, and so. If the mirror fogged up, then they realized that you're like alive and you're like still kind of kicking. So they still try to treat you. But if the mirror didn't fog up, like you couldn't get enough breath out, they would throw you in a trench, dude. Like it was they had this massive trench of dead bodies. They just threw people in the trench, and some of them weren't fully dead. Like they just didn't want to risk it. And so they would and they would be piles and piles and piles of bodies. And then they eventually buried them. They say that there's like...
Makes the pandemic look like a walk in the park, eh?
Oh, seriously. I don't know what the number was. I can't remember. And we were trying to look it up, and I can't remember what the girl said on the tour, but I want to say it was like 650,000. But for some reason, when we're looking it up, it sounded like more like 50,000. I don't know. It's a lot. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. They're saying that there's that many bodies buried under Charleston. Like they built over the grave sites. Like they didn't like build around it or expand past it. They just said, well, we're going to use this land, and they put concrete and they built everything on top of. So that's why it's like the ghost stories and all that, is because all of those dead bodies are there. And that whole Valley Fever story, like where they showed us, we did this horse carriage ride, which was really cool. They showed us like where that trench was, and it expanded. Like, I mean, a lot of it's covered by street, but they left like a patch where they covered like grass. They could have a visual. I guess they had a massive flood. Charleston gets like a ton of floods. And so they had a massive flood come through, and it like the bodies were only buried like a few feet deep. Right. It wasn't a lot. And so when that flood came through, like it exposed these bones, like coming up out of the ground. Like they sent people into the city to go like pick up bones to like clean it up. And like, holy crap.
Apparently something like that happened at Hoth. Because you remember
Yeah.
Remember where the cemetery is in the middle of town there?
Yeah.
On the hill? That happened there with a huge storm, and they were having to like
collect the bones,
the caskets. Well, I don't know if it was the bones, but like caskets were coming out of the ground, and they had to reship. That's wild. When I was looking, I don't know why I assumed, or I just thought that the Carolinas, that tobacco was the bigger crop and product, but it was actually rice plantations in Charleston that was the mecca and huge driving force of a lot of the wealth in the area were the rice plantations.
Yeah, it was a lot of crops and rice, and I think there was indigo exports and all sorts of stuff, but it was just a ton of ports, and like how it started as Charlestown, like you brought up originally, because of King Charles, originally, even though we read the Declaration of Independence, like it was still ran by England. Like we didn't have full independence like day one, right? It was still ran by them for a few years. But it was King Charles, like that they founded it, and so it was Charlestown. And so they built all the partnerships and trade exports as Charlestown. Well, once the U.S. Americans became Americas, then it renamed to Charleston, but they kept the Charles in it because it was name recognition. I mean, it's
just like Jamestown, Virginia.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. It just kind of kept Georgetown. It the same. Yeah.
Georgetown, right. King George. Yeah.
But you're right. The reason why it was a lot of those exports and rice and all sorts of things, that the barter, the trade.
Yeah. Did you hear anything about Robert Smalls?
No, I don't recall.
I didn't. I wasn't familiar with this before preparing for this, but pretty awesome story arc of a life when we talk about the SuccessFlow podcast. It was born into slavery in South Carolina, I think in Beaufort. And he was working on a Confederate transport ship. I think it was called the Planter. And while the ship's officers were ashore, Smalls and another enslaved crew member, they took the ship out of the Charleston harbor past like Confederate defenses and delivered it straight to the Union. And so they freed themselves on this boat, getting it past Fort Sumter and everything. And then it was a huge blow because it shifted the power in that battle. It was like one of the biggest setbacks. And they referred to the area of Charleston like the Low Country warfare. It was like guerrilla warfare because of the hills, and it was kind of a different type of fighting.
Yeah.
But anyway, this Robert Smalls, he went from a slave to becoming a Union pilot on the ships, and then wound up becoming a congressman in the U.S. Congress. So pretty awesome story arc and a great story that I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, way to go, Smalls.
Way to go, Robbie Smalls.
My man. Oh, man. You're killing me, Smalls. That's good. There's so many stories and like historical stuff, like figures. Every time I go, like, I don't know, Crawford's pretty common last name, right? Like, do you go and see your last name every time? Like, I see Harris every time. Like, I see somebody. And then I read their story and like, see what's going on. And there was this one, I think it was the USS Yorktown, and there was a Harris there, and he had like gotten a medal, and like, it was just kind of cool. Like, I don't know. It's just, even though you're not related, you just have a similar last
Well, you don't
name.
know. You don't know that for sure.
Yeah, true. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah,
I love it. I think those are great trips. Those are great trips to take. Kind of, even though we're such a young country, you know what I mean? I was just
250 years. Yeah, so young.
It's still wild to think about how different things obviously were, and to have that reflection on a vacation. I love the history on trips like that. Makes you realize how lucky we are to be alive during this time.
Yeah, and that's why we did it. Is the main trip was Myrtle Beach, hanging out with the family, which is a really cool spot if you've ever been to the East Coast, Atlantic side, ocean, really fun beach area. I haven't
spent much time there.
It was great. The water's so warm. I mean, it was a bit windy. It was kind of stormy and stuff, so it was pretty, there were some red flags on the beach, like tide and all that stuff to be careful of. But we went early, just us four. So my whole family went. My parents, my sisters, my cousin, all my sister's kids, and everybody was all hanging out. But yeah, us four went a few days early just to go experience Charleston. We're not big touristy people. We're not big history buffs. We don't like doing all the tours like for a full trip. But if we have an opportunity to go somewhere near that's close by, and we're like, oh, let's spend a couple of days in this area and then go, do our relaxing part of the trip, like we're going to take it. And so that's what we did, and really glad we did.
I think Paula's favorite part during her bachelorette party was apparently the Charleston Firehouse.
Oh yeah.
apparently the ladies wound up taking the fireman pizza and were hanging out after a few beverages at the firehouse.
Some extracurriculars going on at the firehouse.
I don't know if that was the code for what the male strippers were doing, but she wound up also just being invited in. They apparently knocked over somebody's trash can on accident during their escapades, and then Paula was cleaning up the trash, like trying to put their recycling bin back and put everything back in the trash can. Yeah. And then the woman wound up inviting her into the house and giving her a tour of their like old colonial historic home. They would go to the stranger's house and get the tour because they knocked over a trash can.
That's hilarious.
I don't think she got as much history as you did, but
that's awesome. Like I said, there was a ton of those types of parties there. But one last thing I got to tell you, I sent you that picture. We were at this, there's tons of churches out there. Well, they turned this one old church into a breakfast spot, like a brunch spot. So we got in there and it's beautiful. I mean, you go inside and like inside this church, like it's all, I mean, the architecture is just awesome. And it's called Church and Union. But when we got the bill, they gave us the bill inside the book, The Art of War. And I was like, I got to send this to you. Like, this is right up your alley. If you're good. So like everyone opened it, like all the patrons, like people who had been there before, like everyone wrote like good things or positive notes or whatever. There was stuff written all over. So we spent some time going through the book and just reading like what people wrote and all this stuff. But I thought that was
the second most read book in prison. So I wonder if they had that down in the dungeon.
I'm sure they did.
For the guy. Good stuff.
Yeah, it was a good trip. I'm excited to be back though, back in action, ready to tackle the second half of the year. And I know you are as well. We're gearing up for Summit and
got some good guests dialed in and looking forward to closing out this year strong and keeping these podcasts rolling.
Love it, dude. All right, we'll be back at you next week. Hit subscribe, follow, wherever you listen to us. Just hit that little button. We love seeing that. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, @SuccessFlow Podcast. Got clips there. As always, thanks for listening. See you next week.